what I'm so excited about talking about technology business management is finally putting some substance around a challenge that we all have every single day in executing our roles. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about how this can change the conversation, the dialogue with our business partners, and create more of a value-based conversation rather than a why the heck is it so expensive and so slow conversation. We will talk, Todd mentioned the TBM index. I think it's very unique. I think it's a real differentiator for what the TBM framework is trying to do, which is to create some benchmarking data that you can use very specifically to yourself, to your organization, to your sector, to your division, to your company as a whole. And then, finally, we'll talk a little bit about how people are using this. And first thing I want to do is ask, how many of you know how much money your company is spending on IT today? Very, very confident group of financial managers. Bull. You don't have a clue how much money your company is really spending on IT. I've been trying to get that answer for 28 years. I've worked for some of the brightest IT financial managers in the world. And we don't know. And you don't know. Some of you may have a good handle on what you're spending from an optics perspective, but this is tough. This is tough stuff. And it's going to get harder as we look ahead. Right? So what is cloud doing? And I'm not going to talk about cloud and software as a service and all this cool new stuff that's coming, or not so new stuff, but what it's doing is enabling the non-IT parts of the organization to go get IT under the radar in a way they've never been able to do it before. We have always struggled with gray IT, right? With shadow IT. That's never going to stop, and I gave up looking for that a long, long time ago. But now we're moving into this is no longer shadow. This is real IT. People are setting up in their shops with their credit cards that you do not have visibility to until it's too late. Right? So if you really think that you've got 100% handle on all of the IT spend across your enterprise, or even the division that you're responsible for, I think that you're optimistic in terms of your point of view. So that's just a little editorial on my part. So let me tell you a little bit. I have been in IT for 28 years. I started with Marriott Corporation in 1984. I grew up in the business side of the hotel business, but ended up doing property management system installations, which was replacing the room keys with automated keys back in 1984. I was also responsible for replacing all of the Secretary's IBM Selectric typewriters with the original IBM computers and implementing the first true network at Marriott Hotels. So this English major went into the hotel business and it ended up in IT. It's kind of a classic story. When I arrived at Royal Caribbean, I asked for a list of all the projects that were happening, and after about 3 months of collection, we found we had about 2,000 projects in flight. And every single one was rated as an A priority, top priority, and most of them were at least 3 to 4 years old. So by definition, those are not high priority projects, right? What happens, and you guys know this firsthand, there's no correlation between demand and supply. And in this case, there was no governance around the project's portfolio coming in and what was coming out the other side. It went in, the business thought that they were done, and at some point IT was going to deliver. Of course, when I arrived, it was, Tom, you need to fix this disastrous IT organization, which is too slow, spends too much money, there's no value, and by the way, they're not very nice people. They were wrong about the last part. They were actually a really nice group of people. So what we did, which was very rudimentary, with lots and lots of Excel spreadsheets, we put together what we called the Business Opportunity Council. Now, this is just like every other IT steering committee you guys participate in. About 50% of the people that I talk to, CIOs across the globe, have IT steering committees that they've given up on just because they just could not get traction. The other 50% have IT steering committees that are pretty functional, that are pretty good within a division. Very few do I find work well across the enterprise. And if you're the enterprise CIO and you have accountability for spend across the enterprise, you need to put into place governance and structure that covers that, right? If you and I are responsible for all of the spend associated with enterprise IT, then we need to be able to see that across the enterprise. So the Business Opportunity Council at Royal Caribbean took a while, but our mission was we have a finite supply because we have a budget. That budget requires me to keep the trains running on time. So we put this thing together and we started to just show. So this is transparency, right? We started to show demand. We got the CEO in the room, the CFO, the Chief Operating Officer, all of the lines of business heads, and we put them in a room and said simply, are you aware of what your organizations are asking? We didn't ask them to do anything about it. We didn't ask them to prioritize any of it. We didn't ask them to, pontificate on whether or not this was meaningful. We simply said, are you aware of the demand of what your teams are asking? And every single one was shocked by the numbers. This was the beginning of the Business Opportunity Council, simply awareness of demand. Do you have any clue what your team members are asking? Over time, and the reason I asked, I said about 50% of these things fail, the Business Opportunity Council became the one meeting a month that not a single executive would miss, because it was a ruthless group of business people. And what we were doing at the time was a zero-based budget. So if you came in with an idea and you wanted to get some funding for that, and you wanted to get supply from someplace else, somebody had to give it up from one of their lists, right? This is the power of not managing vertically, but managing horizontally. But what was important was not that we were applying tremendous metrics or great thought process. We were simply changing the conversation and creating visibility to our problem and making it everybody's problem. How can we collectively figure this out? Because if we do this well, the money that we are going to spend anyway, we're going to spend on things that matter for the organization, that really matter. One of the key things that I realized going from Royal Caribbean to Amerisource Bergen was, in IT, we don't know how to stop projects. What are we not? We're great at starting projects. We are not very good at stopping either projects that don't make any sense, projects that are sitting on a list that haven't been worked in forever, or projects that are destined for failure, but because they have resources applied to them, we just keep on going at it and spending good money after bad. It's a discipline that it occurs to me we just don't have very good discipline around, and I wonder if part of it's not this dialogue around having meaningful metrics and understanding total cost of ownership and looking at things today and what do they mean tomorrow, and having the ability to sit down with our business partners and having a conversation not about killing their project, but about rationalizing what we're spending our money on, and should that be there or not. So at Amerisource Bergen, we did the same thing. I actually brought the guy up from Miami. His wife hates me to this day, to Philadelphia, to help me build the Business Opportunity Council at Amerisource Bergen on a much bigger scale. Now here, we were tracking people's time, and we spread that from development into our entire IT organization, including the CIO, track time. Every day I went in and filled out a spreadsheet, or a timesheet. How could I ask everybody in my organization to do it if I wasn't willing to do it myself? And that was very important, not to track what people were doing, but rather to understand the supply and the demand at a very finite level so that we could change the dialogue with the business. This was turning the tables on the conversation about why is IT too slow, why is IT so expensive, what are we getting from them, into a dialogue about why are you guys asking for so much? Why aren't you managing this portfolio of assets better? You would not manage, that was a double negative, I'm an English major, I understand that. You would not manage your real estate portfolio or your merger and acquisition portfolio the way you manage your IT portfolio. I'm spending $500 million a year. Why aren't you asking better questions? Why aren't you, business person, managing that better? Why aren't you engaging more time in helping with the prioritization and the process that's going to drive value to the entire organization? So we changed the dialogue. That was Murphy's Revenge. We also dramatically matured our supply and demand model and understood skill sets and started to apply skill sets. But we also started to link development projects. What's the great breakdown in project delivery is between your development organization and the technology organization that needs to work together to deliver that. We're very good at managing and measuring and all the metrics around the development itself and the methodologies and the frameworks and how much time and the estimating. We're terrible at applying that to what it's going to take to put the servers up and to implement the networks and to light all of that up and to align that. Well, we started to do that, and that's why we had to have the technology teams booking their time. They became part of every single project. Every project had to be in our project management system. Didn't matter how big or how small. Every single one had to have a business person on it, no matter how big or how small. So we really started to mature that model. And then we really went after project rationalization, portfolio rationalization. And what we ended up doing, and the reason I share some of this is because it allowed us, so we showed the business that we had discipline, that we cared. We showed that we understood where the dollars were going and that we cared. And then we started to show them pictures of how real dollars were being spent. And we ended up being given the opportunity to execute a $500 million business transformation program from 2008 to 2011 that changed the entire company. We would never have been given that opportunity to execute a business transformation and to touch every part of an $80 billion organization and literally change the way every single person in that company does their job today if we had not shown the discipline and the wherewithal to understand how the dollars were being spent and how we were rationalizing our portfolio back in 2006 and 2007. So it led to great things. It changed the way the company thought about information technology.